Hello everyone, we're back.
Hi everyone.
So we are still going via our phones and loudspeakers in order to do this, so hopefully the volume is all right, because we've got the most fun thing to discuss, which is problem solving in maths. So we have covered problem solving before, so I won't spend loads and loads of time talking through things like rucksack again. If you've not seen that video, I really recommend going back to watch our previous problem solving videos because they'll be a good introduction before you come on to this one. So what we want to think about in relation to these questions is the different ways that problem solving could be presented to you. And considering that some of these exams have some fairly unpleasant timings to work with, how you can use information to your advantage. So, for instance, with this one, you've got 10 questions. They actually went over the page, but I just put one of them on here. And you've got 10 minutes to answer them. I don't know about you, Jenny, but my immediate thought when seeing that would be, oh my God, I've got 1 minute per question.
Yeah, definitely.
So what we actually want to do here is kind of try and avoid doing too much working out and too much maths, which sounds really counterintuitive for, a maths exam. But what we're actually going to try and do is use our knowledge of mathematics and how to narrow down answers to do these as quickly as possible. So as an example, if I read through the table at the top with the 10 options, well, there's 10 options for 10 questions. So it's going to be one option per question. That means as we start working out some of the easier questions, we can narrow down what the answers are for all of the others, because it's unlikely to be used more than once unless the exam specifically tells you that's possible. Okay. I can also look at what the answers are likely to be. So, for instance, number 52 down here, I can see percentages and I can see a pound symbol. That means that my answer has to be done in pounds. Well, if I look back at the answers here, there's only 3 options that have a pound symbol next to them. So there's only 3 possible answers I could have. Okay, so you basically want to use your knowledge to avoid doing workings out as much as possible. So I'm zooming in on a couple of specific questions on the left-hand side here. So Jenny, if it was you sitting this paper, out of those 4 questions, which one would you want to start with?
Number 48, because, it's easy, and there's only one possible answer with a decimal and no pound sign, so it has to be B.
Yeah, it's got to be answer B. So great, we've immediately been able to work out the correct answer for that without actually doing the division. We just know that's the only possibility. Okay, that might be a bit difficult for people to see actually. I'll change the colour on that one super fast. Okay, what would you go for next?
I would go for the next one, 58.
Okay.
Because I know that 250 millilitres is a quarter of a litre.
Mm-hmm.
So it must be 5 times 4, which is 20.
Great, so that matches up to one of our answers. Yes, it does. Just double checking that. So I has to be correct for that one.
And also the nice round numbers, it's not going to be E, it's not going to be G. They're nice round numbers with 5s and 0s and quite like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that also means that I can cross these off. Obviously don't do it on your workings out, but if you've got a bit of working off, so you might write side A to J and then cross down B and I off there as an example. How about out of 46 and 52?
46 scares me.
Mm-hmm.
52, Monica puts aside 5 cents for earnings into a savings account for a rainy day. Oh, God.
I know.
Yeah, that's not too bad. I'd do 52, I think.
Yeah, so what do we know about 52? Well, this involves money.
Yeah.
So the only possible answers then can be E, H, and J.
And we're guessing it's not E because she's not doing very well if that 5% of her earnings is only £2.23.
Yeah, we know we're looking for about 5% of 65,000, and actually, if we read the question carefully, it's 5% in 2 years. Well, that's just 10% actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's 10% of 65,000? Yeah, so it's got to be H. So what we've done there is we narrowed down some possibilities that definitely can't be the answer. And also, if we look at it logically, if you're not sure about how to do, say, 5% and then times 2, well, 43,000 is almost as big as 65,000, so that's definitely too big. Has to be H.
And I've just realised, actually, that for 46, there's only one with centimetres after it, so it has to be C.
Yeah.
I didn't even do any math.
Yeah, definitely. So looking at really quick, speedy things like that is going to make your life so much easier. Because obviously we've been chatting about it, so it takes us a bit longer. But if you were just doing that process inside your own head, you've probably got 4 questions done in about 2 minutes. Which makes your life so much easier, because when it does get to the questions that are quite tricky and will need a bit more effort and workings on your part, then that means that you know exactly what you need to do and you've got the time to actually spend that workings out. So it's not really a minute per question. It's get a few questions done in a really speedy amount of time and then spend a bit longer on the ones that do need some workings.
Yeah.
All right. So the next lot aren't multiple choice, just to give you a bit of an example of how some slightly more complex questions could be set out. This one is really typical of the kind of question that a lot of people get scared by because it's telling you some new mathematical information, which looks scary. So what we need to think about here is, well, what knowledge is it asking me to use and apply here? So here, for instance, we've got a formula. So I know that's algebra. And it's also asking me to talk about circumference of a circle and radius of a circle. So I know, well, the circumference of a circle is the line around the outside, and the radius is the line from the middle of the circle to the edge. So I know that will help me. Looking at the formula, I also need to know how we'd apply algebra to a formula. So for instance, if I had something like 2n, do you remember what that would mean?
So 2 times whatever n is.
So 2 multiplied by n. And then if you're told, for instance, n is 40, 2n would be 80. Okay. In this case, I've got 2, this funny looking symbol here, which is pi, and r. And it tells us that pi means 3.14. And r is the radius. So for instance, if we have 2 pi, that means 2 multiplied by pi, or 2 times 3.14. And then because there's an r after it, we're doing 2 multiplied by pi multiplied by r. So if we know what pi is, and if we know what r is, we can actually work this out because it's just multiplication from that point. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's have a look at a couple of these questions in a bit more detail then. So if I've got a slot here. So the radius of the London Eye big wheel is 68 metres. What's the circumference rounded to the nearest metre? Okay, well, we do actually know how to do that, looking at our knowledge that we've just talked about, but it might take us a little bit longer to work out compared to some other questions, so let's check the others. What's the area of the big wheel? Well, it does actually tell us how to work out the area of a circle right here, doesn't it? we do pi multiplied by r squared. Okay, again, that's a fair bit of working out, but we know how to do it, that's okay. And then finally, the wheel has 32 capsules and can carry 800 people. So what's the average number of people per capsule? So what do you think we need to do to work out this one?
Just a division.
It's just division, yeah. So which one you do first is basically just going to depend on whether you feel more confident doing multiplication or division at that point. So what would you start off with personally, Jenny?
Well, I quite like the multiplication because the formulas are there. So what we're doing is slotting the numbers in and then doing the multiplication.
So let's do one of those just as an example then. So if I know that the circumference equals 2 times pi, I'm just going to use h to take the place of pi, times r. Well, we know that in that case, that would be 2 multiplied by 3.14. And then what does it say the radius is?
So the radius is 68.
68, great. So then, we need to decide which is the easiest way to do this multiplication, because there's going to be a few different steps. So where would you start personally, Jenny?
Well, I'd probably times 3.14 by 2 because I could do that in my head.
Okay.
So that would be 6.28. So then I would times 68 by 6.28.
Great. So at that point then, you're going to be doing a little bit of long multiplication, most likely. Yeah. So rather than spend loads and loads of time working it out, because I think everyone does know how to do long multiplication, I'm going to do that on my calculator super speedily. So we get the answer there of 427.04. So what does the question ask me to do?
Round to the nearest metre.
So what would that be rounded to the nearest metre then?
427 metres.
Yeah.
But am I right, we have to do the rounding at the end? We couldn't say 68 times 6.
It wouldn't be the best idea. No. So there are some questions, for instance, if it was like 6.001, you would be able to do that because whatever you're doing with that 0.001 is not going to have any effect.
Yeah.
However, we've got to do this particular one at the end because the 6.28 is going to have much more of an effect on what's happening here.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 2, the area of the big wheel, that's another multiplication one. So what does it say is the formula for the area?
So the area, pi. So 3.14 times the radius squared.
Yeah.
And the radius is 68.
Yeah, so I've got 3.14 multiplied by 68. I'm just going to put 2 in brackets after this because I can't put a squared in here like this. So what are we going to do first then? Are we going to square 68 or are we going to multiply it by 3.14?
Square 68, so 68 times by itself.
So again, that's just a quick bit of long division at the side for all of you there. So 68 multiplied by 68 gives us a delightful number. So I get 3.14 multiplied by 4,624. And again, we need to do a bit of long multiplication in order to work all of that out, which gets me 14,519.36.
So we have to round it as well.
Yeah, so what are we rounding to this time?
The units, it says, so 14,519
Great.
meters squared. That's a big wheel.
It is a very big wheel. I suppose that's why it's famous. So, final one here then. 32 capsules, 800 people, what's the average number? It makes it sound more complicated than it is because it uses the word average, but all we really mean is, roughly speaking, how many people fit into each capsule. So we're doing a bit of long division here, which would be 32 divided by 800.
Other way around, yeah.
Oh, sorry, yes, 800 divided by 32. Yeah. So if you're like me and you really, really don't like long division very much, Jenny, do you have any recommendations on how we could approach this to make it a bit easier?
Well, I'm the same and I really don't like it either.
Okay.
We could, one of the methods, the chunking method.
Yeah, I quite like chunking. So what I'd be doing there then is basically writing out multiples of 32.
Yeah, so I would probably say, well, 10 capsules has got 320 people
in. And then what would you do?
20 is 640. And then I would then I'd get.
So what I'd do here then is a bit of quick maths. If I do 600 plus 300, that's 900. That's far too many people. So at that point then, I might work out what 5 times 32 is.
Yeah.
So, well, 5 times 32 is the same as half of 320. Half of 300 is 150. Half of 20 is 10. So that's going to be 160.
And there's the answer.
How do we know that's the answer?
Because 640 people plus 160 people is 800 people.
Yeah, so we've got 20 capsules plus 5. So that means that the answer must be, quite simply, 25.
Yeah.
So that one isn't too bad. And some people really get long division and could probably do it quicker than we did via the chunking method. If so, you are better at maths than us. Well done. Some people just don't get long division and it doesn't stick with them. So if you're one of those people like us, this is a method that you can use. It also means if you're really struggling with the algebra side of things, you could do this division question first because you need none of the algebra in order to answer it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's all about splitting up this exam in the way that makes the best sense for you and the way that you prefer working in maths.
Yeah.
So final bit here then, I've got one more, which is what I think of as being real life questions. This is where they want you to apply your math